Hello, Build Grow Crafters. In my basement, I have this wall that needs a built-in, and that's what we're going to do today. Stick around to the end to see how we use it. The large Ikea bookcases come with 2 of the long side panels, 3 stationary shelves, and the movable shelves, also instructions and all the hardware needed. The difference between the stationary and the movable shelves is that the stationary ones will have large holes drilled in them, and then the movable ones have smaller holes for your shelf pins drilled in them. So here I'm just separating everything into 2 piles, laying it out, seeing what I have. And I started with putting in all the dowels and gently hammering them in with a hammer. I do not have a rubber mallet, so I was just really gentle with a regular hammer. If you look closely, I made a mistake here. That top shelf should be holes up, so when you stand it upright, you don't see the hardware. That was later discovered, so do not make the same mistake that I did. Both of the long sides have these screws provided that screw in beside the dowels. This is where your hardware is going to attach to the side panels. And you just see me here making sure that everything is aligning, pressing everything down, and then inserting the hardware and just using a flathead screwdriver to tighten it all and double checking to make sure that everything is nice and secure. Next, I lay the unit down onto its face, and you see me marking where the middle stationary shelf is. That is so I know where to nail in my backing nails and I don't miss. To help with that, I laid down a shelf to make sure that I was getting a straight line. All that's left is to set your unit upright and install the shelves. If you look closely at the next shot, you'll see where I talked about the hardware showing. Now all that's left to do is to continue assembling these bookcases. I had 4 of the large ones and 2 of the smaller ones. I installed the shelves in all of the units. However, now that I'm thinking about it, I would have probably just left them out because I had to take them out again later, and I still ended up moving them around and changing it up to fit the books and things that I was putting on the shelves. This is the layout of our general plan to have a TV mounted between the bookcases here. For the footer, we chose to lay down a 2x12 and the length came just over 16 feet. This was easy. We didn't have to build a frame or anything. We just secured it to the floor and put our shelves on it, and then we were able to secure the shelves to the actual wall. But before that, we wanted to have them be connected to each other, and we used baseboard as our spacer and then the provided L brackets to secure it to the wall. The materials used to give this a built-in finished look is paint grade MDF that has been cut to a rough length. The width has been cut to the final size. The smaller pieces to the side are melamine, and those will be fillers. The need for those fillers is because if you look here, there is a gap between the actual shelf and where a board will lay flush. So first thing we did was we took off the edge tape that's already on the shelves and just gave that a quick sand. We needed to take off the edge tape for it to sit flush. The fillers were then cut to size. We used Gorilla Glue instead of wood glue. In this situation, it gave us better adhesion. After some cleanup, we are ready for the second step. This piece was cut the same size as our baseboard. It was glued and nailed into place for all the trim to be flush. This is another look with the filler. Next, we will be attaching the baseboard. Baseboard was cut at 45-degree angles at the joints and nailed into place with a nail gun. The purpose for a header is to fill up some of that space that we have up top. We could have bought another shelf to fit in there, but we didn't really like how that was going to look. It wasn't going to leave much room for a crown molding. So we're just making a basic frame of 2x4s. We wanted the header to be about 12 inches, so our board was cut to 10.5 inches with the anticipation that the crown molding would be a bit above the board to cover it up. So here you see my husband, he is marking off where the studs will be. These same marks were then transferred to another 2x4. These studs were cut to 7 inches. It was all laid out on the floor for assembly, and my older son assembled it while my husband finished securing the rest of the frame pieces. We did not have a 2x4 long enough, so it was just joined with an extra piece at the end and assembled the same way. This is the final result, ready for install. If you notice, our 2x4 is very bowed. This is because we got it off the clearance section in Home Depot. But once secured, this did not pose a problem. I definitely don't avoid the clearance cart in Home Depot. I find some really good deals there. Throughout the process, we were grabbing a level and making sure things were level just because we wanted to keep things square and nice and even. This board was installed to frame the TV. The same melamine fillers were installed for the top shelves. The edge band was taken off again. It was sanded down a little bit and they were glued and nailed into place. We chose to place this board center because we didn't want to have a seam that would fall in the middle of the TV. If something was to settle and crack, it wouldn't be right in your face. The joints were also cut at 45-degree angles here. These trim pieces are 2 inches wide. With our filler and the side panel widths, it gave us about 1/8 inch overhang on each side. The last trim piece was cut to accommodate an outlet, and then the outlet cover was cut as well. Since our header did not reach all the way to the ceiling, we needed something to nail the crown molding in, and this was our solution. These little triangles were cut at the angle of the crown molding and installed, so when we went to nail the crown molding, it was just nailed into the triangles. This definitely helped the molding be much more secure than it would have been just nailed into the board. Elmer's wood filler was used to fill the nail holes. Once that dried, sanding pads were used to sand all of that down. After sanding, everything was vacuumed and wiped down. If you notice at the header there is a patch that was sanded through. That was because it was not flush. That was then primed before painting. Caulking all the gaps just gave it this nice flush built-in appearance, so definitely do not skip this step. Once all of that is done, now it is time to tape everything off and we are ready for paint. For a paint match, we grabbed a door and we went to Sherwin-Williams. For painting, we used a combination of mini foam rollers and paint brushes. The foam rollers, for some reason, we thought it would give us a nicer finish I don't think I would use the foam rollers again for a project like this. We just didn't really like how it went on. But that's for future reference and for you. A total of 2 coats was applied. We waited for the paint to dry between coats and then applied the second coat. Another option would be to use a spray gun that, however, requires a lot more prep work in taping everything off where possible overspray could be, and that's just not something that we wanted to do for this project. This area is where the TV will hang. It was painted black for the TV to blend in. This is a piece of oak plywood that was veneered and clear coated. To install it, notches were cut out of the trim and then it was slid into place. Before installing the doors, the hinges were attached and all the doors were marked on the trim. Since we had added depth and width, the hinges would not lay flush, and the problem was solved by taking a little bit of the trim out for the hinges to be able to sit in that little notch. After the hard part, installing the doors was the easy part. A ruler was used as a spacer and all the doors were installed. This is done. All the doors installed and TV has been hung. We did not install the Ikea pulls. This is what we chose instead. Final length came to 193 inches and height came to 92 inches tall.